Hello, and happy Wednesday, March the 8th. Welcome to my Creature Curations. I'm Brian Cullen, and today I will be continuing to sculpt on this beast I have over here. I've done 2 sculpting sessions on him so far, and since the last session, which was, today's Wednesday, which was Monday evening, I went ahead and added these horn pieces on here. And those horns are pretty simple. I just wanted to go ahead and get them done with just so that they were going, knowing that I was working on them. And what they are paper towel tubes out of an empty paper towel roll, and they're chopsticks that were cut in half. And I drilled holes into the styrofoam head just so I could jam those chopsticks down inside, twisted up the paper towel roll, jammed them on top, taped them around just to give it a little bit of a foundation so that I can then sculpt on top of it. Because I didn't want the whole horn piece to be completely solid magic sculpt. Because if that's the case, it's going to be really heavy, a lot easier for it to break off. Plus I wanted to kind of anchor it in with some chopsticks. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully anybody that's watching, please let me know if you can hear me because my internal speakers are no longer showing. So I don't know why they're not showing up. Hopefully you are able to hear my voice. And when I use Magic Sculpt, I always put on these gloves. Excellent, great. Can you hear the music by any chance? Because I hear them in the headphones. All right, I've got my magic gloves on to work with the Magic Sculpt. It is a 2-part air drying resin. I'm going to start with the resin part first. And then from there, I will get some of the hardening agent. All right. With this, I'm going to grab out about a ball-sized, small ball-sized piece, and the first thing that we're going to do is start to. I'm going to start to work on the antler or the horns. Let's see. Well, I don't know. As long as you can hear me, hopefully that's the main part right now, and then I'll figure out why the internal speakers are not working next time around. Or I can also turn this up. Let me know if you hear any Beastie Boys now. I'm going to grab one of my sculpting tools because if you look deep down into my hardening agent bucket, it's starting to get pretty down to the bottom, and it's harder to pull this stuff out. So I'm just going to grab one of my tools and start kind of scraping it along to help me shovel some of it out. Getting a little bit out. It's going to take a little while. I should have grabbed a tool from down in my shed, like a big scraping tool, to really pull more of this out at one time. Spend the whole 2 hours of my stream scraping out hardening agent out of there. Huh. All right, well, I will have to figure that out next time. Hopefully I can figure out why my internal speakers aren't working, because I prefer not to be wearing these headphones. Plus, I like having music in the background so that if there's lulls in my chatting, you can hear it okay. But I don't know, the microphone on these headphones may be a little bit better than the microphone on the Logitech camera. I'm not sure. I know I went back and started listening just a little bit to one of my past streams just because I had been told that the audio got a little bit lower. And I think it could just be that camera or where it's positioned, depending if it's further away from these larger sculpts. All right, we are using Magic Sculpt. Like I said, it's a 2-part air drying resin. With this, you mix them equal parts. You can mix them in different ratios if you want it to harden faster, but then you'll just run out of the hardener quicker. Or if you want it to cure slower, you can have more of the resin, but then at the end of the day, you'll end up with a lot more hardening agent. So I try and make them equal batches. I'm going to pull this out to a nice coil. Going to do the same thing with the resin. And as you can see on this beastie, down his chest, I used pistachio shells to get a nice texture going on here. That's a little different than just normal sculpting textures, and it was a fun way to eat a bunch of pistachios and incorporate it into a beast. I've got a house that's partially built on the top that I'm going to keep adding to. I'm going to add another story to it. I take these two parts, part A and part B, and I twist them together. And then I just keep twisting until, right now you'll see that there are two shades of gray. You want to make it so that those two shades are one nice universal shade. So I'm just going to keep working these out. And just going to keep folding things over and over and rolling and twisting until it is all done. Crazy. So I restarted my computer like 3 times before starting the stream because my internal speakers just decided they weren't going to work anymore. I completely disconnected everything that was attached for the USBs ports. I turned off these headphones completely. Still nothing. I do not get it. And just going to keep twisting this out. And as you can see, there is still ribboning of color of the hardening agent mixed in with the resin, so you just got to keep working it down. The bigger of the two balls that you get and you start mixing it together, the longer it's going to take for them to integrate together like they need to. But yeah, from here, we'll do really thin magic sculpt. I basically want to just kind of coat the horns completely to give it a foundation to build on next time I sculpt. I think we'll start building out some of the lower lip and start building that out because I think that'll help give it some personality. Start to build up the eyebrows a little bit, or the brow over top of just right here. And then we'll just see where the day goes. I will have to stop in about just under 2 hours now because it is in the middle of my workday. All right, I think the magic sculpt is finally mixed thoroughly. Now I'm just going to pop a little bit of this off and just pinch and pinch and pinch and pinch until I start to get it like a flat, almost pancake type consistency. That's not right. About just the thickness. And I'm going to fold this around and just gently start to lay it in place. Okay, now this is still pretty loose because this is just held in with 2 chopsticks, a paper towel roll, and some tape. So there's not a whole lot to that. So I don't want to like completely manhandle this and really put too much pressure on it. Now once this cures, it'll start to cure in an hour, but then over the course of like overnight, it will really harden up and get nice and super firm. So I want to make sure that I get the basic shape that I want in, at least like the flow of it. And then from there, next time I sculpt on it, it'll be nice and rigid and I'll be able to add to it. Oh, damn, sorry. Let's turn this guy's head just a little bit. I do not have the bowling ball weighing down the back of it today, so that will hopefully make this a little bit easier. You can see the pathway leading up to the house on his back. You might see Beetlejuice walking through in the background. I've got 2 of our 3 cats hanging out in the office today, Beetlejuice and Zelda, but I think Zelda is pretty happy to be under one of the tables. Probably won't come up to visit us. They still have a ways to go. They'll be a little more like ram horns once they're done. A little more. Hey, Beetlejuice. I guess they need to go down just a little bit more. And as this starts to cure just a little bit, oh, Beetlejuice, oh, son of a bitch. Get off the computer, get off. So somehow he managed to move a whole bunch of stuff down on the computer. Hang on just a second. There we go. All right. Beetlejuice managed to completely sit on the computer and shift the screen all over the place. He's also managed to completely shut down my computer before while I was streaming, so it's probably not the best friend to have in the office while I'm working on this. Hello, Beetlejuice. He heard you. He's going to come out and see you. All right, once I get all this completely, get a nice little layer on top of all of it, then I'll kind of reshape it a little bit more and then just let it sit and cure, and hopefully it will get to a decent point that next time I sculpt on top of it, we can really start to get the texture and the details that I want in it. So this round doesn't have to be super pretty, knowing that I'm going to keep going on with it, but all right. I'm going to twist him just a little bit, and you're going to have to see him in the small view up behind you, or up in the corner of the video screen, just for a couple minutes while I just do a couple patches here. That's going to be a lot easier for me to work if I'm up on it like this. All right. Trying to shape it a little bit more. I'm going to have to let that harden up just a bit. And as we get closer to the end of the stream, I may reshape that a little bit more and hope that it kind of stays in place the way I want it to. But I just bent it down just a little bit more. And this is going to be a foundation. It's going to be thicker, and it's probably going to come out a bit longer here and curve just a little bit more once I get those. Once I get this where it's to a point that it's a little more rigid. And now I'm going to do the same technique by pinching out the Magic Sculpt and just going to keep wrapping this piece more and more. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and try and attach it a little bit more here, down around the base. Carrie, do you see a little community icon down in the lower section? Do you see if it says community sculpting? Okay, give this. I'm going to have to pull all this down into the styrofoam a little bit more. Whoa. All right, now he's starting to get a little top heavy with the horns. I'll drop a bucket of Magic Sculpt back there. And now I'm going to just add what I have left of this first batch of Magic Sculpt here, and then it'll be time to mix a little bit more up. When laying foundations down, it's pretty easy to quickly go through batches of Magic Sculpt. So again, this time I will jump into the hardening agent first. It doesn't really matter which one you grab out first to work with. Just pull some of that out. Scraping the bottom of this bucket. Luckily, I've got those two brand new buckets ready to go. Did not want to run out of Magic Sculpt while working on this one, because it will end up taking a fair amount, especially doing the fur along the sides, building up the facial features, adding a second layer to the house. I will use a good bit of Magic Sculpt along the way. Definitely harder to scrape this out when it's down at the bottom. Come on. There we go. Probably end up using most of what's left in this bucket before today is out. Got that hardening agent. Now it's time for some resin. This resin bucket's almost empty. Just as I said, trying to mix them equal parts so you run out at the same time. This one's definitely lighter than the hardening agent is. Again, just going to roll this into a coil, similar to the last batch that we mixed up 15 minutes ago. Grab this one, do the same thing. But just by doing this simple under framework of the horns with the paper towel rolls and the chopsticks, definitely saves a whole lot of weight, a whole lot of magic sculpt. And it helps really get the shape going. I'm really excited to start seeing the eyebrows on this guy and the chin a little bit more and the lips and building out the cheeks a bit. I think it's definitely going to help catch the personality a bit more. Start building up the mohawk that's going on in the center as well. And just keep rolling this magic sculpt until it becomes one. All right, almost there with this one. And I'm still seeing a few little tiny ribbons of color in here, so I'm going to mix it together one more time. All right, now I'm going to smash this down into thin layers so that I can start to wrap this around the this horn. Just going to smash it down with my fingers. Work it to a fairly thin surface. And just wrap this around this horn. And I'll come back in and we'll reshape these a little bit, work this magic sculpt in a little bit more, make sure that everything's kind of smoothed into one another a little bit. But now it's just really getting the foundation down to build on later. Because like here, I did the same thing with the ears, and now those are completely solid and ready to be worked on. None of the texture that's underneath is going to be used at all. It will all be completely covered up. But it was a similar principle to making sure that I had that foundation of rigidness so that it's easier to sculpt on later. Okay, I'm going to wrap the tip of this horn. And then once this is in, I'll start making sure that I've got it on the, there's a couple spots in the back that need a little attention. Got that. Then there's a little bit coming down the side. Little patches that I'm going to need to make for where I'm squeezing on this and it's making things rip apart a little bit. And as long as I have a decent foundation here, it will be good for the next time. Yeah. I just want to look at it straight on and see if I'll spin it to you. Kind of gives the basic shape that I want. Let me look at it again. Really, it was kind of coming down a little bit more. Oops. Not going up so much. Coming down, curving back around. That's right. Okay. This is going to be a decent foundation for finishing that part up later. But this stuff all has to completely cure and dry before doing anything else to it. Now, since I've still got this big old batch of Magic Sculpt, I think I'm going to go ahead and start putting a little bit of substance over the eyebrows. And I'll start just by rolling this out just a little bit and starting to work this down over top of it. Now, I don't want to actually touch the eye really yet. I just want to get these base shapes in, knowing that I'll come back over top of it, putting fur and things like that into it after I get this foundation in. I'm just going to work this down into the styrofoam shape. And then just keep blending that just a little bit, smoothing it in just a little. Oh, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Got to take just a little bit more of this and put it up here like that. Try not to hit the horns too much with my fat, clumsy hands. Gonna spray this with some water just to make it easier to smooth things down. One thing that I don't want by adding these heavier brows is to start making it look angry, because this creature doesn't really feel like it's going to be an angry creature. All right. I'm going to put a little bit down underneath each of the eyes since I'm already getting some of this put in. We'll probably end up putting a little bit of texture in just in case we don't go back over it at a later date. But I'm sure we're going to have to, because it can't just be this amount here. But I think we'll go ahead and close up this eye just a little bit. I'll probably do this, then I'll come back and do a little bit inside the eyes later. The thinner coils. Okay. But for now, we'll put that in, give this a spray. One of the nice things about wearing an apron while you're working on this, if you start dripping water and Magic Sculpt water down, it's going to land on your apron as opposed to your shorts or your pants or whatever you're wearing. Okay, where is this? All right, I'm going to take this tool and just kind of work it down away from the eye just a little bit. Now I'm going to do the other side real quick. Just blend this in just a little bit. Take this knife and just straighten things out just a little bit. Just gave a little notch in that horn. All right. Let's see. Before we leave this facial structure where I'm starting to put these shapes in, let's go ahead and grab a rake tool. Where are you? Where are you, my friend? Oh, here you are. Rake tools are awesome, and I didn't discover them until a couple of sculpts ago. And they are basically like little rakes, and they're a super fast way to get fur texture in. So I'm going to just go ahead and super spray this down with some water. And I'm going to take this rake, and I'm going to go in the direction that I imagine the fur will be, and just push down heavy. And then let me grab a paper towel. Excuse my face. I'm going to wipe this down real quick. Then I'm going to spray it again over here. And grab onto the house and just pull some of this out. I pulled some clay that time around, but that's okay. I'm going to wipe the blade off, or the rake off, and I'm going to do the same thing down here. Just pull some of this fur down, and just like that, you'll get some fur shape going on. Let me see. You can quickly and easily get texture that way. Going to do the same thing on this side. I'll spin this guy this way just a little bit. And spray it down super heavily with some water. Ooh, this is really catching some Magic Sculpt. I need to scrape these tools off. They're getting a little bit clunky. I have not cleaned them thoroughly lately, and they're in some serious need of some attention and love. And just going to pull this through. And there's little burrs now of the Magic Sculpt from my rake not being cleaned thoroughly. And I'll just come back in and scrape those off after it's dry. I'll sand them down just a little bit, easily pull those off. Okay, one of the easiest ways for me to do this is when these materials are completely dry, is just grab an X-Acto and just kind of shave off the excess. Like you can see on the handle how built up and clunky the Magic Sculpt gets on them. All right, well, we've got these this like around the eyes starting to fill up just a little bit. So now I want to start doing a little bit on this lower lip area, especially knowing that I'm going to have teeth coming up back here and having that going over top of it. So I'm going to, let's start by putting a couple of teeth in real quick. I'm just going to pinch off some Magic Sculpt. I'm going to try and get equal sizes since I'm going to try and match the teeth on both sides of the face. Going to grab these, and all right, they're pretty close. Let's see if these are right. I'm going to roll this up, and this is going to be a big-ass tooth if I do this way. I think that might be, that's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it over here. And now the styrofoam, because I've been spraying it with water, is a little bit wet. So if I push down on it too hard, it's going to start sliding around because it's got that moisture underneath of it. So if you really want to make sure it's going to adhere well, you'll dry it off just a little bit. Make sure the areas that it's touching are going to be a dry surface. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some water to this in a minute anyway, because I'm going to put some details into the teeth. And we're going to do these teeth, then we'll do the other teeth underneath, then we'll start to build out the lower lip. Then we'll let all that dry before we put the fur on top of this area, because we don't want to accidentally jump into these teeth and mess them up while they're still soft. Okay, I grabbed two more smaller pieces of Magic Sculpt, and I'm just going to kind of roll these into like little teeth shapes as well. Little tooth. Sometimes I need to roll it a couple of times before I feel like it's a good shape. And then I will smooth all this out with some water in just a minute. And I wanted these a little bit closer together in the drawing, so I'll go ahead and pull those closer. Definitely need to figure out what's happening with my speaker situation. All right. Now I'm going to grab a couple other tools. Let's see, what do I want to use? My desk is a bit of a mess right now, so apologize if it takes me a minute to find exactly what I want to use. We'll use this one. Let me scrape some of the dried up Magic Sculpt off of them. Just use the tools, the opposite tools, to just scrape off some of the buildup. All right, got buildup off of this one. Now I'm going to spin this just a little bit, just so I can see it a little bit better. And now with these teeth here, I'm going to give them a little bit of water, just so that I can smooth them down a little bit more. and then we'll come in and add some texture, a little bit of details to them. I prefer to really do as much as I can just with my fingers before going to tools, just because I feel more a part of it. Let's see. Okay, now that we've got that, actually, I want to scrape this one. And I'm going to be using just kind of like a flat knife on this for just a second. And what I want to do with this is I just want to shape that smaller tooth just a little bit better. Cool. Have fun picking up why. And thank you. Okay. Just going to shape that just a little bit more, a little bit cleaner than what I was doing with my hand. Same thing on this one. Okay, now that I've got that, I'm going to take this tool, which is kind of like, it's got like a real tiny, like pointed, almost triangle on it. And I like my teeth to always have these kind of notches and grooves coming up from where they're rooted in the gums. So I like pulling up some detail lines. It allows me to go back in with paint while I'm painting and just fill it in with a slightly darker color. Almost all of my teeth have elements like that in them. All right, so that's pretty much it. With that, there's a little bit of flake there. I'll pull that off. All right, so we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to spin that guy. Now, ideally, I would be able to grab onto my camera and zoom in on this stuff so you can see it better. But while I'm working with my gloves, it's challenging to do that and adjust the camera on the computer. So I apologize for that. But hopefully you get a sense of what I am doing. If you don't, please ask questions. I'm more than happy to share any of the knowledge. Okay, I'm going to shape this a little bit more with my finger, then we'll come back in with that blade just a little bit to tighten it up even more. All right. And do this again, and tighten. All right. Hey, Yay Games Forever. Thank you very much. This is a new creature from my fantasy world of Revilo. I'm slowly building out all of the critters that live in my world. I haven't determined a name for this species yet, but slowly, as I continue to sculpt on it, I'll come up with the story and a lot more about it. So I've still probably got like 4 more sculpting sessions on this, I would imagine, and then it'll probably take a couple painting sessions for it, but just slowly working on it. You can see the concept sketch that I did in the lower right-hand corner. I ate a bunch of pistachios to create this texture that's going down the chest, and it's going to be the trail up to the house that's going to be on top of it where smaller critters live. Thank you very much. And I'm using Magic Sculpt, a 2-part air drying resin to sculpt all the details onto this. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and start building out the, thanks. That's one of my friends. We were sitting around eating pistachios, and he was like, you should use this as a texture. And I was like, yes, that's awesome. So I'm just rolling out what I have left in this batch of Magic Sculpt before we mix some more together into a coil, because I'm going to use this as the foundation for the lower lip that's going to go along this guy. Turn it more towards you so you can see. Maybe even drop the camera just a bit. All right. So with this, I did spray this with water to smooth some things out, so I'm going to wipe some of that moisture off of there to let it dry up. And I'm going to try and get it fairly even. And so this styrofoam form that I'm sculpting on top of is a styrofoam bear head that somebody would use if they actually did taxidermy. So I used that as my base shape, cut into it, added to it, and I'm just going to keep building on top of it till it looks nothing like a bear. All right, since we've got that lower lip kind of starting to form on there, I'm going to spray it just a little bit and smooth it in, just kind of blend it into the styrofoam base a bit more before I mix up another batch of Magic Sculpt. and it's probably going to need a couple more layers on top, but I'll probably want to wait until these teeth that I just put in dry so that I'm not messing with that too much. But meanwhile, this should really get blended in, smoothed in, so it has a good grip on the styrofoam. All right. We can come back in and add a couple more details to that Magic Sculpt after I mix some more up and add some more down below, because I want to start building out the chin a little bit, and then I think we'll start building out the ridge on the center of his head. Okay, so yay games forever. If you have never seen Magic Sculpt or you're not familiar with it, it's a two-part air drying resin. This part is the resin part. I'm going to grab this size ball of it. Then I'm going to get the same, approximately the same size of hardening agent. I buy it in two 10-pound buckets. That's the largest size that I'm familiar with to mix them up. You can also get them in smaller sizes if you don't work on things quite as massive as some of the pieces that I work on. All right, going to scrape out some of this hardening agent. So do you make any art, Yay Games? Slowly going to grab onto this, now that this is down at the bottom of my bucket. It's not really talent, it's just more determination and continuing to pursue even when things don't work out. Everybody has it. It's just, I think most of it's just a matter of discipline. All right, this hardening agent, as you can see, is almost all the way down to the bottom of the bucket. It makes it way harder to get out. But it's going to come out this time. And this is definitely the stickier of the two components. All right. There we go. So we got our hardening agent and our resin. Now it's time to coil these up. Just pull a coil out as long as you want it to be. Do the same thing with the resin. It doesn't really matter which order you do these in. Then we're going to intertwine the two together and twist and twist and twist. Why, thank you. Yes, I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I read a lot of comic books and watched a lot of Jim Henson films growing up. So my mind wanders quite a bit into the worlds of fantasy. And this fantasy world of Revilo, I'm just slowly building out so that hopefully in the next year or so it'll really start to feel full. I'm working on the different regions of the continent, the different species that live there, how they interact within their own societies, and the cultural differences between all of them. As you can see, there's marbleization going on between the resin and the hardening agent. You want to make sure all of that is gone before you start putting this down on something. Otherwise, it just won't cure properly. It won't harden the way you want it to. I feel like we're getting close with this batch. So this is I think this is the third batch of Magic Sculpt since starting on doing today's round of sculpting. I usually sculpt on these for about 2 hours at a time. just because this is in the middle of my workday. So taking a 2-hour break to make some of the magic. Plus it allows it to set up if I then come back to it another day, so it's got time for it to completely harden up. That is my favorite thing about Magic Sculpt, is the air drying ability of it. All right, so this is completely mixed together. Now I'm going to start to block out the chin underneath. I'm going to wipe it down, make sure the water that I've sprayed on it isn't there, because I want the moisture to be gone. So this will grab on pretty quick. Now when I start to press down and I'm holding it in place, I need to make sure that I'm pressing down on areas that do not have wet Magic Sculpt. I don't want to start smashing into things that have already been resolved. Okay, so I'm going to get that basic shape in. I'll come back and smooth it out later with a little bit of water. Let's go ahead and start. Now I'm going to kind of hold off on most of this until we start building out these horns, but since I just started putting those horns on today, I don't really want to address that much. I am going to build up these cheekbones just a little bit so that there's foundation there for the next time. And I had similar size balls of Magic Sculpt in my hand when I pulled that off. So that should be a good, want to try and keep those fairly symmetrical, though they don't have to be exact, because in nature and life, people aren't, and animals aren't really fully symmetrical. And I have that, it's going to kind of go down underneath. And these are really just rough blocking in at the moment. Let's go ahead and roll this into a coil. And I'm going to go ahead and put this down on here. Oh, don't want to smash down into the teeth or the fur on the brow that I put in today. I will, however, take this ridge almost all the way back, because I want that to feel kind of like a nice fur, like higher up ridge, and I'll probably add more layers to it as we go. I'm going to pull the camera up just a little bit now. And with these in place, I'm going to go ahead and spray under here, only so that I can smooth it in. And let's see, here's a good place to grab onto it. I'm just going to smooth that Magic Sculpt into the styrofoam so that it will get a good grip. I don't even think I'm going to worry about putting fur into this piece yet. I think this is just going to be the changing the overall structure, the facial structure of the creature. And then next time I can put some more Magic Sculpt on top and work that into some fur. Or I may come back and add a little bit, I don't know. It's getting a little more pointy than I originally envisioned, but that's one of the nice things about sculpting something from my imagination. If it changes while I'm sculpting it, it's not a big deal. Okay, I'm going to spray this down and smooth this in. Magic Sculpt also responds really well to water. You can really smooth things down with just a little bit of water and some pressure. So glad I finally figured out the communities, how to get that showing up in my stream. Had to go to YouTube to do a search for it, which is crazy. Okay, I think that has a good foundation for now for that cheekbone. We'll build that up more as these horns get worked out. All right, gotta spray this one down, this cheekbone, and smooth it in. So this one will be one of the bigger creatures that goes with me in April to Spectrum Fantasy Art Live in Kansas City, Missouri. After this, I've got 3 more small ones that I need to get done to really fill up my booth. I also need to make my panels for my trade show booth because it's time. I've bought all the supplies yesterday. It's just going to be a gigantic undertaking to try and make walls that are similar to pro panel walls. All right. Whoa. Got to watch where I stick those fingers. Okay. Now that I've got this started up, I'm going to go ahead and spray this kind of mohawk ridge down. Grabbing onto this plastic nose that preformed on the shape. I'm just going to start working this down in and smooth it down into the styrofoam. And just blend this down. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And I want it to kind of end before it gets to the house. Almost as though the creatures that live inside the house kind of cut the yard, or cut the fur down so that they have a bit of a yard around. All right, we've got a little bit more of this magic sculpt in this first batch. So for this, let's see, what do I want to do with this before I start? I'm going to put some fur texture into that ridge. I guess I could start to pull some of the, I'll go ahead and start putting some under the chin again. I guess I didn't need to raise up that camera. But before that, let me go ahead and spray this down. I'll go ahead and start pulling some fur texture in here. Spraying this real thoroughly. Again, with this, I'm going to be using the rake tool. I'm going to flip it over backwards, and I'm going to pull in the direction that I imagine the fur going. Like if you're petting a cat, you're petting it this way. So I want the fur to go the same way. So I'm just going into this, and you'll see it on the other side in just a minute. And it's going to quickly give it a nice fur texture without a whole lot that you have to do to it. Okay, now that I've got that, I'm going to wipe the rake tool down, to spin it just a little bit, and just quickly pull this fur up. And it's going to get that fur texture real easy, which is going to be nice to use when I start to go to paint it, because it'll allow the shadows to really fall into those creases. All right, I'm going to move that one up just a little bit more. I like that it has a bit of a wave to it, that it's not like 100% like straight and rigid. All right. Now that that's done, I'm going to drop this camera down a little bit, and I'm also going to give it a little bit of a tilt. I think I am. Come on, tilt for me. There we go. Here we go. I'm going to drop it down even more and get up closer. Whoa. Hello, my friend. All right. Sorry if that made anybody dizzy, but I'm going to go ahead and start building out some of this a little bit more. Just going to lay a little bit in here. Going to do the same thing on the other side. Just trying to figure out where to position my hands so that I can support it for the pressure to keep it from bouncing up and down a whole lot, but still apply pressure to the magic sculpt underneath. I'm just kind of pushing down to get it all into place before I start going in, making sure that it's the right shapes, and then starting to add texture as well. And go ahead and add a little bit here, and pull a little bit into this side where I missed a little bit. All right. I think that's going to be enough of a foundation there to spray it down, smooth it all into this part up here. And there is nothing better than using a spray bottle on this stuff. I used to just dip my thumbs in water and try and cover it, but holy smokes, the spray bottle works so well. And I'm just blending this all in, just trying to get a nice smooth texture, because I will come back in and I'm gonna, while this is still wet, I'm gonna put some fur lines into this. Now, I wear gloves while working with Magic Sculpt because I have an allergic reaction to it. It makes my eyes swell up. I know a lot of people use it. They don't have any problems, but it just happened to me a couple of times, and then I was like, all right. So that's have my eyes swell up a couple times, and that's more than enough for me to start just wearing gloves just as a precautionary measure, especially with most things that I work with my hands that are chemical-based. Okay, I think this coming off the chin now is just a little too much. So I want to cut a little bit of it off. I want to but I want it to be like a clean cut. So I'm going to grab some dental floss, and I'm just going to, let's see, where's a good amount? Up a little bit higher than that. And I'm just going to do just pinch that off. Boom, and it just slipped right off. Now I can take that, it's almost the right shape to just work into here for another little bit of fur. So now I'm just going to smooth this down and then blend this up, make sure it's fairly center. And this will just completely bond to this. And give that another spray, then I'll blend that out, and then we'll start turning that into some fur. And then once this stuff is done, I'll probably have to come back in and add some more fur to it after this is all dry, but that's okay. This gives it a nice undercoating. All right, I'm going to take this fur tool. Okay, get off of me, dental floss. That is plenty. Leave me alone. There we go. Okay, taking the rake tool again, I'm just going to go in the direction that I see the fur going. Kind of like how a beard would go. And the harder you press down, the deeper the ridges are going to be. Definitely also, the wetter it is, the easier it's going to be to pull through it. All right, going to spin this guy just a bit, do the same thing on the other side. See if you make sure you can kind of get a sight on what I'm doing. Got to spray this side down. All right, going to pull this. Going to clean this one off. It's starting to get a little bit of buildup. And pull this and keep going like that. And try and make sure that I get all of the area that I've covered, just so that if I don't sculpt back over that part, it has some texture going on it like I'd want. All right. Now that I've got that foundation fur line in, before we mix up another batch of Magic Sculpt, let's put some deeper fur cuts into this. Doesn't have to be anything super major, but just, I'm going to take it from down here and just pull it up and blend it in. Just do some thicker, heavier lines. Twisting as I go to get line weight variation in the grooves that I put in. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Have a good day. And then I'm going to do the same thing up top. So here we go again with the camera adjustment, jumping up. And I'm going to just spray onto the mohawk. And I'm going to come in from the top like this and just pull some lines in. Need to get my computer speakers working, so I don't just look like I'm bobbing my head to nothing. And just pulling these in, and I'm going these in the same direction that I have the fur line going. I'm just pulling from the opposite side so that it has kind of more of the grooves up at the top. All right, I think that's doing pretty good with that. Now, let's see. What should we do next on this guy? Okay, I really need these horns to set up before doing anything to them. We could start building out the ears a little bit, start adding texture on those. Will allow the face, this part of the face to dry up a bit more. And I think that's a good place to start. And then maybe after I get those ears done, depending on the time, I've got about an hour left. If we get a good foundation on the ears, then we may spin it and start laying down big masses of fur on the back and on the side. I think that'd be a good next step. So, more of the magic sculpt. I'm going to take a little swig of water real quick before we jump into the next step. All right, so I'm going to grab some of the hardening agent. It's going to take a minute to pull this out because, actually, no, I'll pull it from the resin because we're going to finish off this bucket of resin. There's not a whole lot left in this one. So might as well go ahead and get all this out. And this will give us an idea of how much hardening agent we need. Ooh, this one's going to be a big mix. So a little bit more out of this bucket. I'm going to go ahead and completely scrape the edges. And once these edges are scraped, all right, this totally gives us the idea of the size of hardening agent we need. It's a pretty decent sized ball of hardening agent. Oh, my hands are getting sweaty inside of these gloves. But if I take them off now, I will never get them back on. I always try and get my gloves when I'm doing this part where I'm working in details and stuff. I always want my gloves to be as snug as they can be, so there's less lines that are less like lines in here, so that I can keep it smooth if I want to. Since I do prefer to smooth as much as I can out with my hands, I'd much rather have my gloves tight. When I'm doing casting, like doing some like liquid pours and stuff, I will definitely use bigger gloves. All right. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. I'm just going to be scraping this out of this bucket, and it's going to take a few minutes to do this. All this stuff. I'm just going to keep looking over this beastie to get a better idea of its personality as we're coming out. The horns right now, because he's not completely fur covered, starting to definitely look a little meaner. But I want him to have a gentler appearance as we get a little bit further along. So I think the illustration really has a softer feel. All right, scrape, scrape. All right, this is scraping the bottom of this barrel is a pain. There we go. A little bit at a time. The ball is not quite the same size as the other one yet, and I've still got this hardening agent down here, so I want to try and get as much of this out as I can.
I didn't think I was going to sculpt today during my stream, just because the setup time and the teardown time directly afterwards, or like when I go to break it down, takes me a little bit longer to get settled back into my workflow and get back to work. And the day job is very busy at the moment, so as soon as 3 o'clock hits Eastern Standard, I'm going to have to jump out and get back to work. But one day all of these creatures will make me a decent living. All right, we're getting close to where I'm going to start mixing it up. And then before the next stream, the next stream we'll start using a new bucket. All right, I think that's pretty darn close. I can scrape what's left of this bucket out between now and then and just let this stuff sit on top of the new bucket of hardener. I will put the lid back on it, even though almost all of that is gone. The hardener definitely has an odor to it that the resin does not. All right, especially a brand new bucket. Take these balls, coil them out. I'm just going to coil and pull and coil and pull. Going to do the same thing with the resin. And since this is a large batch, it's going to take a while to mix the two thoroughly together. Whoa, rip that one in half. Yikes. It's not a big deal if you rip it. They're all just going to get mixed together anyway. I think Zelda's going to decide to come and say hello. She's got up and is walking around from under the table she was last under. All right, now you can see that these two are completely different shades of gray. You've got to just mix them together. With a big batch like this, you just got to keep twisting and twisting and rolling and twisting until it's all blended. So, what did I say I was going to do next? Oh, start putting some texture into the ears. That'll be fun. Especially at the inside of the ears, I think we'll do a different texture. I'll maybe grab out one of my silicone texture maps and press that down into it on the inside, then do fur along the outside. That'll be fun. Then turn this beast sideways and start throwing some fur down, maybe on the back section behind the stone wall, or not the stone wall, the walkway that's starting to build up. If this stuff ever blends together, I mean, still there's a ton of marbling. Pull, pull, pull. Definitely working my arm muscles, the forearm muscles and hand grips, blending this stuff together. But it's definitely getting closer. So anybody got anything exciting happening on this Wednesday afternoon? Or Wednesday, whatever time it is where you are? I always say afternoon just because that's what time it is here. All right, these are almost blended together. All right, I think we're in decent shape to start doing some sculpting. All right, I'm going to stand up for this one, pop the camera back just a little bit over here. All right, I'm going to grab off just a little bit. Well, let me give this one more pass with this stuff blending. All right, I'm going to pinch off a size about this size. I'll do the same thing for the other one. I just want to try and make sure they're fairly consistent. With this, I have this ear that I already started sculpting on last session. It was a piece of a really hard, rigid board that I put in there, and I cut into the styrofoam and I jammed it inside, and then I sculpted the Magic Sculpt on top to help get it nice and solid and rigid. Now that that's there, I'm going to put a new layer of Magic Sculpt underneath, or in it, so that I can start putting the textures in and the details that I want. I knew that I needed it to be nice and hard and firm before I did this, so that's why I went ahead and built the foundation, kind of like what I did with the horns today, to give myself a starting place so it's nice and solid. Now with this, I can just kind of push the Magic Sculpt around on top of it because it's already hard. Okay, now that that's on there, I'm going to go ahead and, even though this is freshly mixed up Magic Sculpt, I'm going to go ahead and spray this so I can smooth it down really well with my thumbs. And it looks like I'm just doing the exact same shape, which I pretty much am, but now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add texture. And I'm going to look inside my drawing that I did look at. I've got my original drawing, even though it's on screen, I have it laying down on the side of my desk. I'm looking at it to make sure I'm picking up on some of the subtleties and the things that I wanted to have in this that's going to help make this creature who he is. So, that being said, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these knives, just a flat knife, and I'm going to pull this up and put some serious lines in here, because I have that in my drawing. And I'm doing them deeper than I normally would because I know I'm going to come in just a second and press down with some texture, which is going to mute these lines a bit. They're not going to be anywhere near as deep as they look now when I press down on them with something else. And there will be another piece that comes up over top of this, giving it dimension, but I'm going to do that after this whole section has dried. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm going to refer to my drawer of textures. So in that drawer of textures, I have some silicone mats that I've purchased. Oh, maybe this will be better. Some silicone textures that I've purchased and some that I've made. And with this, for the texture inside of this particular ear, I think I want to use, no. Whoa, what did I just knock down? Oh, knocked down a bucket, no big deal. Okay, trying to see which texture I want to work into this one. I think that's going to be too subtle. All right, let's see. I think this is going to be a little too scaly. I think that's okay though. I think what I want to do is I want to give it this kind of scaly texture and then smooth some of it down with my fingers so it's not like it's like real scales, but it has kind of like a weird bumpy effect. Okay, so now you should probably see some of these textures that I pushed in, and that was just real simple, taking the silicone piece that I made. And this, I'll have to figure out which episode it was from, but I basically made a silicone mold of some paper. It was textured paper, poured silicone on top of it, and then, because it was my buddy Russ's idea, and he came over and we did that, and then we just made molds of this textured paper. Okay. So there, what I did, I just used my thumb with a little bit of water to smooth that down a little bit more, so it wasn't just nice, like one solid sheet of that kind of scaly texture. But this gives like an interesting effect inside of the ear. Going to do the same thing on the other side. First thing I will do is I will spin that creature to try and keep it in view. All right, let's adjust the camera a little bit. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean for it to get that jerky. All right, there we go. Again, any questions you have along the way, please let me know. I'm just going to lay down a flat surface of Magic Sculpt inside of this rigid ear. Then we'll do the exact same thing where we cut the lines in, lay down that texture map on top of it. and then I'll probably leave that alone. I won't even do the fur on the back of the ear because I want to be able to grab onto that when I'm doing the fur on the backside. And with this still soft and wet, I don't want to mess that up at all. So from here, I think we'll start putting some of the fur in the side of this creature. We've been making a lot of progress, which is awesome. I feel like the last two sculpting sessions, it took a lot of work to get those pistachio shells in as a texture because it was a very slow, repetitive process. Some of this stuff, when I start laying down Magic Sculpt in big sheets, it ends up going by a lot faster, starting to get that smaller texture in. Brown. All right. I think I got all of that pretty much in. I can feel that there's some air bubbles in there. There's one right here. Sometimes when you're laying down sheets, you get air bubbles. All you do is poke it with something and then smooth it down with your thumb, and the air will pop out of it. And then smooth out that where the hole was that you poked. All right, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and spray it a little bit. Put in the ridges that I want, or the cut lines that I wanted in. Again, making them deeper than you would normally make them, knowing that we're going to apply a lot of pressure. All right, now we're going to spray it really thoroughly and take the same texture map, press it in, and I quickly got a ton of texture in there. Now I'm just going to smooth some of that out just a little bit. So I don't want it to be overwhelming with that texture and look too clean and too nice. All right, cool. So we've got that in. Move some of these buckets that I knocked down. I'm going to move this guy just a little bit. Turn this camera down a scotch. See if you can, all you see is bucket. Let's see, move this over this way a little bit. See if I can be in camera at all. There we go. All right, now I'm just going to start putting some fur texture in here and make sure that this is nice and covered. Because some of this stuff, like the fur back here, is something that I can do while other parts of it are drying before going in and adding more details. Another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just roll out a coil and gently work it down into here. So as you can see, there's a line here and there's a piece of plywood here. And what this was with taxidermy forms, they come in different types of taxidermy forms. One is a wall mount that already has the wood on the back, and then they also come in with a pedestal mount. And pedestal mounts are made so that they will just sit like as a centerpiece somewhere. So I had to like bend and break the metal bolts that were coming down out of this, and then I had to cut out a wood plaque that was the same size and mount it to the back of it so that this will be easier once I actually cut out a nice plaque to mount it and I know that it's going to be good and secure, because last thing I want is one of these monsters falling off of one of the plaques that I make. So now since there's a little bit of a gap, I'm going to go ahead and just fill that in with a little bit of the Magic Sculpt, and then we'll get into putting some fur texture along the side here. But there's a little bit of a gap because it did have a small piece of wood in the back where apparently the two posts were secured into. So I managed to screw the wood piece that I cut out into that, but wasn't quite flat where I cut the back with the styrofoam. Hey, Rappaport Zero, thank you for the follow, much appreciated. I hope your Wednesday is going great. And welcome to my Creature Curations. So now I'm just going to take some of the Magic Sculpt and just kind of work out little patches. And we're just going to patch it in all over the side here. And once it's in pretty thoroughly, then we'll start working on the fur textures. I still have quite a long way to go with this beastie. I mean, between adding another story to the house, finishing out the face and the horns and all that stuff, this one's definitely going to take me quite a while. And big thanks to Mystic for the auto host with some folks tuning in. Hope anybody that's jumping in from Mystic's stream is doing well today. Please let me know if you have questions at all about my sculpting or any of the creatures that I make. And just going to keep pushing this in here. I'm just slowly building this out. Looks like we will probably get to open up a new batch of Magic Sculpt today, because we're going to have worked through this in no time. This beast is definitely taking his share of the Magic Sculpt. Whoop. I feel like I just lost a little bit of Magic Sculpt into my apron. Hey, War Dog Leader, thank you for the follow. I hope your day has been filled with success and riches. Okay. So we've got this big old quilted patchwork of Magic Sculpt going down the side of this. I'm going to go ahead and smooth them together now before mixing up a new batch, but I'll wait to do all the textures inside of it until we get these little holes patched up, at least from the walking path on backwards. I'm just squirting this down with just some straight water, ka-clunk, and I'm just going to smooth this down with my thumb just to blend it all in so it at least feels like it's all part of one big sheet of Magic Sculpt. If anybody's watching that's not familiar with the material that I'm using, it is a two-part air drying resin. It's often used in taxidermy. It's very similar, I think, to epoxy sculpt. Hey, Volpsy, thank you for the stream, or for the host. I hope your day is going awesome. So, one thing that's great about this is that it air dries. I don't like having to bake anything, especially when I'm doing something so big. And I also like that it's water soluble. So you squirt it down with water and it really will kind of move around and smooth together for you. And with almost all the stuff that I do is weird organic types of creatures, it doesn't have to be completely geometric, though I know a lot of people that use Magic Sculpt that can get it super smooth. And you can also, after it's dry, you can sand it with sandpaper and use Dremels on it and stuff. Hey, Volpsy, I'm good. How are you doing? Bleed purple? I'm sorry, I'm not good with the lingo, and I do not know what that means. Oh, thank you for the follow. I missed the name as it popped up on screen. My audio is a little wacky today. All of a sudden, my computer decided that it didn't want to allow the internal speakers to work right before the stream. So, excellent. Hey, Miss Kilgrim. I do very much appreciate the host. That's awesome of you. This is just one of my critters from my fantasy world of Revilo. I'm slowly building this one out. I need to have him or her. I haven't really decided much about this creature's backstory yet, but I need to have this one done by Spectrum Fantasy Art Live in April in Kansas City, Missouri. So, all right. I've got all that mixed up that's mixed up on there, so I need to mix up a new batch of Magic Sculpt. And it's a brand new 2 10-pound kit. Oh, thank you very much. I like the concept sketch a lot. I hope it turns out as gentle as the drawing looks, because right now it's like the structure, like the face and the look is starting to look a little bit meaner, but I'm sure I'll sweeten it up before it's done. And the house is going to be a little different than the concept sketch, because I decided I want it to be like 2 stories and have some sort of weird chimney coming out of it, and have it a little more, make the house a little more interesting and a little less like old Smurfs. All right, I'm just this is covered in tape, this bucket. I just gotta slice this thing open. I didn't think I'd make it through that last bucket on today's stream, but I'm so glad I am. Bubsy, how are your sculpts going? I feel like it's been a couple of days since I noticed anything on Instagram, but I also have not been being as social as I should be. Although I never really am. All right, this one bucket is almost ready to go. And this is the resin bucket as opposed to the hardening agent. The resin does not have quite the stink that the hardener does. Now there's going to be one little problem. My hardening agent is weighing down the monster, so I'm going to have to do like an Indiana Jones type swap. I'm going to grab my thrift store bowling ball Barry, and I'm going to have to see if I can swap him. Hey Selden, how are you doing today? I've been good. I've been busy, and normal life stuff has been jamming things up, but things are going well. All right, got my second bucket here. I finally figured out how to put communities into my stream, because that was boggling my mind for like a week and a half. I'm so glad I got that in there. All right, there we go. Oh, the sound quality, so my internal, is it really crappy? My internal speakers all of a sudden completely gave out for some reason right before the stream. Ooh, this hardening agent stinks. And so I had to use these headphones, because I thought then I'd be able to hear when people started following and things like that. But it's using the microphone that's built into these headphones. If it's totally poor, let me know and I will disconnect. Okay. Sorry about that. I restarted my machine like 3 times before the stream, and couldn't quite figure out what it was, why my internal speakers just gave out on me. Oh, awesome. Oh, I loved how those legs were going, and I think wasn't it originally that the legs had broken off, and then you redid the shaping of it and how the legs were working? Because the last photos I saw of that Voltsy were looking really spectacular. You capture movement of figure in a way that I can never seem to, my brain just won't go there. All my stuff is very, very static. Yeah, right on. Well, I will get that. I'm going to try and get that figured out, hopefully before today's Wednesday. I'll get that figured out before Saturday's stream. Or there's something wrong with my MacBook, which would really be a shame because it's relatively new. So anybody that is not familiar with Magic Sculpt, it is a 2-part air drying resin, a hardening agent, and a resin. You try and mix them equal parts, mainly because it gets sold to you in equal parts, so you don't want to have a lot of either one left over. And then you just mix the two together. You'll see the dark gray and the light gray streams. And then you just, oh yeah, totally, Voltsy. You just twist them and twist them and twist them. And then you just blend it until all of the dark gray and the light gray become one. Well, one thing, I don't know if this will affect the sound quality at all. You're not hearing the music anyway, so I can stop it. And maybe that will somehow magically make these headphone speakers be a little bit better. And as you start to blend it together, you will see ribbons of the two colors. You do not want to see ribbons before you start putting it on your beastie, or whatever it is that you sculpt. You want it to be nice and clean. And let's see what happens here. And almost there. Once I get this mixed up, you know, I will switch the mic to see if I can switch it to the Logitech and see if it sounds better. I'll just have to take these gloves off and swap out my gloves. So what's the, you said you're doing research for your next sculpture, Balsi. Which, do you know what you're working on next? I've got 3 more styrofoam-based forms that after I get a little bit further with this one, I need to start working on concept sketches for those. I need to look at my world setting and figure out which areas do not have enough beasts in them yet, or critters in them yet. All right. Now you can see that there are no ribbons going through them. Some cracks where some of it separated a little bit, but no real ribbons. All right. Sweaty hand. I'm going to see if I can go over to my other monitor real quick, see if I can adjust the settings, settings, properties, and see if I can swap it to this and hit OK. All right, hopefully that will sound better, and it will definitely make me a lot less sweatier because I don't have the heat surrounding my ears where the cool air can escape my body. All right. All right, hopefully my hand is dry enough to squeeze back into this tight, medium-sized glove. Almost. There we go. Ooh, my fat, sweaty thumb. All right, now that we've got this worked up, I'm going to go ahead and just mash out a flat piece of it so that I can go ahead and lay it down on this area here and start to press it in. And once I get this whole area covered up, then we'll start throwing some texture in, which will be exciting because right now it's just looking like a big gray blorb. And one of the nice things about this, the Magic Sculpt, when you go back over top of something, whether it's still soft or whether it's completely dry, if you go back over it with some water and just smooth things down, it's going to completely go over top of it and smooth in and look like it's part of the original. This guy's got a little bit of a bounce going on to him when I press down from below. I want to make sure that I get all the way up to where the kind of pistachio shell chest plate comes in and make sure that I can get the texture going well. And keep smashing that stuff down. Boing, boing, boing. Sorry about one of my cats has decided that they wanted to use the litter box in my office today. That's fun. Hopefully the microphone's working well enough that it picks that up real nice and well. Oh, Magic Sculpt down. All right, we're gonna put this in here. Now I don't want to go completely up to the edge of the house because I haven't fully decided exactly what is going to happen there. But now you can see that I've got that blocked in, this blocked in. Let's go ahead and spray this down and we'll smooth it all in. And what I want to do is on the back side, I'm kind of keeping my thumb up along the edge of the wooden base If I have the Magic Sculpt go over top of it, it's not a big deal. I can sand it down. But if I keep that base nice and flat and clean, when I go to make the wooden plaque that this is going to mount to, it will make it attach so much smoother and cleaner, and it's less work on the back end of things. Trying to be as efficient as possible when making these critters. Can save a whole lot of time. And also, once it's big and clunky and painted and stuff, when I'm going to attach it to a wooden plaque, I don't want to have the less I have to fumble with it and fiddle with it, the less chance of me accidentally being clumsy and doing some sort of damage to it after the fact. Oh, Zelda, that was pleasant. Thank you for that. I'm just going to blend this in up here. All right. So since this is a furred creature, what I'm going to do before I put in the actual the actual fur lines, I'm going to take a kind of flat bladed tool that I've been using for some of the others. I'm just going to bring some lines back from here because the fur is going to go in this direction, and I want to go ahead and pull some lines from in between the stone pathway of the other critters that are going to live here, and just kind of pull some of these back so they'll be deeper than the grooves that I put in with the rake tool. And I'll show you the rake tool in just a second. And holy smokes, I need a gas mask for Zelda. She has totally wrecked my office. All right, I'm going to spray this down really thoroughly. That is just a bunch of water. Hello, Mr. Rake, where have you gone? The rake tool, it looks like a little rake. I'm going to turn it over backwards so the prongs face up while I'm pulling, and I'm going to pull the direction that you would pet this creature. Like if this were a dog or a cat, you want to pull it in that direction. And the deeper you push down, the deeper the grooves are going to be. And one of the most amazing things about a rake like this, I used to have to do this by hand with like one little tool, doing line. And this, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You've got 10 little pieces in here that are pulling texture all at one time. That makes you 10 times faster at what you were doing, which is pretty great. Took me a while to actually discover one of these. I went to what is it? I went to GooCon at Engineer Guy in Atlanta, and one of the guys was there. Somebody was there selling these tools, and I picked one up, and I have not looked back. It was great. Now you'll see little burrs that are coming up along here, and that's not a huge deal. The burrs are going to be okay, and I just need to make sure that once it's done, I can just kind of get a light sandpaper and sand those off, or just kind of chip them off a little bit. But this is definitely starting to pull some of it. I'm getting some of the Magic Sculpt on the back of Barry's case, Barry being the bowling ball. For when I picked up Barry at the thrift store, it's hard to find short, fat handholds for somebody with my fat fingers and the right gait in the fingers. So when I found it, I was like, it must be destiny. And inscribed on the top is the name Barry. So I always assumed that the bowling ball's name was Barry, not the previous owner. All right. Now we've got all those fur lines in, and you'll see that the deeper grooves that I put in before are really muted now that I pressed down and kind of went through with the rake. So the deeper you go with those, the better, because they're really gonna get muted when you start pushing down. Now there's going to be little things in here that I'll find where I'm going to want to come back and add some more details and touch up a little bit. A lot of that will also get hidden with paint when the paint job comes. But that was a really fast way to start getting some of the fur in here. Now before this is completely done, I'm going to come back in and put more, or should I do it now? So basically I want that fur to come up over, almost like grass is kind of growing up over top of this path that the creatures that live in this house would walk down to come down here. So, but I don't think it's quite, I think I should let that dry before I go back in and add that to it. But
since we've got that part started over there, I think I want to turn it around and do the same thing on the other side before I come up into this ear, especially since this inside part of the ear is still wet, as well as the horn from today's sculpting adventures. All right, I'm going to spin that creature. All right, and make sure that you guys can see okay. Try and move the bowling ball off screen. And tools drop to the floor. All right. So, let's see, move this guy just a little bit. Sorry about all the maneuvering around. When I'm working on something this big, it's hard to get it in any one really awesome spot that's going to be great for the entire time. All right. So now I'm going to just start putting texture down on here. Now you'll see that up along this edge, there's a bunch of Gorilla Glue, because when I put the piece of wood on the back, I put Gorilla Glue on there to really help secure it in, aside from just the screws that were in there, because I want to make sure that this wooden plaque is never going to pop off of this styrofoam piece. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and just put this whole sheet down here, and then we're just going to smooth it out and just work it as far as it'll go, and then we'll mix up some more Magic Sculpt and work some more in. And away we will go. So, and finger, let's see. Nope. All right. And keep going down here. I'm going to smooth this in a little bit, then we'll mix up some more Magic Sculpt. Again, the spray bottle is one of my favorite things to use when using Magic Sculpt. It helps get water on so fast and allows you to really start moving things around real quickly. Oh, is it worse to hear now? No! All right. Well, stand by. It did change, because I thought that the other one would help. Hang on just a second. Stand by. All right, where did my headphones go? Hang on just a moment as I look to see where I just put everything. Oh, there they are. Is that better? Can you hear me at all? Thanks, Terry. So it was hard to hear me, so I switched it from the headphones to the Philips, to the Logitech, and I guess that just made it worse. It looks like the microphone levels are jumping up higher now that I've got this back on, so hopefully that's a little bit better. So I'm going to jump in with some more Magic Sculpt. Going to grab some of the resin. Great. I will see if I can adjust. We'll have to do some test streams before the next stream and see if we can figure out what is going on with the sound. Breaker 19. All right, I grabbed some of this Magic Sculpt. I think we're just going to try and come out to like here, and then we'll call that for now and stop there, because it'll be almost 3 o'clock at that point, and it'll be about time for me to get back to the work. For it is still a Wednesday, which means I should probably stay with the day job at some point later on. All right, pulling the resin out of the bucket, or not the resin, the hardener. It is a 2-part, a resin and a hardening agent. You can get Magic Sculpt from taxidermy shops. You can now find it on Amazon. I think I saw it somewhere else too. I pretty much always get it from a taxidermy shop because that's where I get my base forms from.
Like this is a brown bear base that I'm sculpting on top of and cutting into and modifying. I'm going to take the hardening agent, roll it into a coil. Going to take the resin and make that into a coil. I'm really excited that I've made significant progress on this guy today. And next time will be even better because some of the pieces that are soft now will be able to get sculpted on top of even more. Like the horns, I can't wait till those start to come into play. And I think next time the face is really going to start to come together because the lower part of the lip where the lip needs to come out more and some of the structure of the face, some of the cheekbones, and on top of the face will really start to come, hopefully get developed. I need to doodle through some more ideas for the building because I need to figure out what I'm going to do for the second story, how I'm going to work the actual roof on top of it, as well as work the windows, and because I've got ideas, but I really should probably draw it out so I have a stronger sense before I go in, since that is not something that I do a lot of, actually do any of. I don't really do structures until now. All right, here we go with the Magic Sculpt. It is still marbling together, so I need to blend this stuff in even more. And blend and blend and blend. All right, it's almost blended together. We'll be able to start laying this down on the beast, and we'll start putting some fur on. I may actually put my signature, my C on this round, because I'll probably want it to be down around here, so it's not super obvious, but it's on there. If you don't know what that is, you will see soon. Hey, Jasorbeck, thank you for the follow. I hope your day is going great. All right. Now, when it gets closer to once I've been sculpting on something for an hour and a half, now's when I really have to pay attention to where I'm putting my stabilizing hand. Like I can grab on here, but if I grab on somewhere else on this guy, I may go into some soft Magic Sculpt, and that would not be cool. Okay, I'm just going to push this down and work this in. All right, now we're going to come up on top. Thank you. That would be my childhood and much into my formative years, and then carrying on through to my adult life. I love D&D references all the time. Actually, 5 of my creatures are going to be in a campaign setting that Lynn Vander Studios got funded on Kickstarter, and they're in the process of finishing out the content of. So 5 of my critters will be in that. They're doing that in both 5th edition form and Pathfinder setting as well. So I'm excited to see that come to print, because I've seen the stats on some of on the creatures, because I sent over notes and stuff on that, and it's definitely coming together well. What sort of settings do you like to play in? All right, here we go with this patch of Magic Sculpt up here. All right, I feel like we can maybe get another little patch in before the 3 o'clock witching hour when I have to call it quits. Let me go ahead and smooth all this stuff in to each other. Excuse me. And that's just a little spray of water, and just working my thumb with some pressure to work it all together. You might see that I'm starting to get an air bubble here. If I just stab it, let some of that air out, press down, it will work itself out. Yeah, I never actually played 4th edition at all. I like Deadlands too. I've not played Shadowrun, though I knew a lot of people way back in the Wayback Machine that played, but I could never get into one of the groups that was running it, and I was not up for learning more rules to run a game. Plus, I was pretty set at that time in Forgotten Realms and also Ravenloft as well at the time. But that was many, many, many moons ago. All right, got to keep working this in just a little bit more. So this side is all pretty much going to be fur coming down the side of this creature. Since there is the path going up on the other side to the front door of the house, there isn't going to be a lot more going on here texturally. Just getting into sculpting. Awesome. So what sort of sculpting are you doing? All right. I think I'll mix up just a little bit more before we start adding the texture. Gonna grab some more of the hardener. I'm not gonna mix as much up this time. I think I'll probably come up the top side real quick and then just do a little bit more here if there's room. Okay, a small ball size of the hardener. Awesome. I think monster clay is fantastic, especially when you're just trying to learn how to do shapes and textures and things like that. The thing that I don't like, I have some monster clay and I've used it a handful of times, but I like to have a final permanent piece and something that I just can't keep reworking, because I have a tendency, if I rework something that has the ability to be destroyed, I will destroy it. So I've used it a couple times to do some castings, make some molds of them, but I always come back to Magic Sculpt because it dries. So not quite as much of the resin to the hardening agent. Do you know what you're gonna sculpt? Do you already have in mind the subject matter? Gonna roll out this resin real quick. Do the same with the hardening agent. Pull that and then twist these two together. Yeah, it's totally good stuff to learn with. Gonna blend these two together, keep twisting like a cruller donut, and then smash it all together. And then keep working it together forever until the two colors become one. And I've only got a little bit of time left before I've got to get back to work. I've got about 12 minutes, so we're going to lay this on once this is all blended. Got to get rid of that marbleization. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, having a good idea of anatomy is a really solid place to start. I tend to ignore it most of the time and hope that it's pretty close to right. But that's doing fantasy creatures. You can sometimes get away with that and say, well, things work differently in my world. Right on. Sometimes, most of the times, I draw what I'm going to be sculpting, but also a lot of times I just jump in and see where the sculpting takes me. Especially since sculpting, for me anyway, seems to go a lot different than the two-dimensional drawing. Yeah, I can understand that as well. All right, I'm going to stand up for a second, and just lay some of this magic sculpt down on the backside behind the house along this creature's back. Just to get the foundation down. Oops. I'm going to hold on to its nose so it'll stop bouncing as much. Sorry about the back of my arm being all up in your face. All right, that should be good for me to then smooth down with some water. Next thing, we're just going to run this all the way down this side. Awesome. Very good. Yeah, I mean, if you've done some terrain stuff, that'll definitely lend itself to the drawing. I mean, to the sculpting. Okay, going to just start mash this in and blend it up into this part. Come on. There we go. Going to try and work out some of the air that's underneath of it as I work it down. Cut off some excess along the way. Nothing major, just ripping it off. When there's water down here from spraying it, it's not going to adhere quite as quickly. And just a little bit more right here. All right, now it's time to work all this in. I'm going to spray it all down. Going to hold it by its nose and just use my thumb to blend all this in. And once this is all done, then we'll start working hair lines into this. We'll use the rake tool to really pull a lot of hair in. Make sure I cover up all this. There is some Gorilla Glue back here that I need to make sure that I get covered up that I missed a little bit of. Let's pull a little bit of clay from right here. Just grab a little pinch and just blend that in. Nice and smooth. And there's big lumps, you can just force them down with a little bit of pressure. And keep working this. Want to get that fault line blended in together. Smooth it out down to here. I don't mind it having kind of waves in the shape at all. Just kind of gives it so it's not a nice, clean, sleek coat. I like it having a little bit of form to it. Push that air bubble out. I don't know if you can see the air bubble on screen. There we go. That air bubble had to go. Oh, there's another one. Jam it. Sometimes when you're working with big sheets of Magic Sculpt like that, you'll definitely get some air bubbles and just gotta let that air out. Okay, I've got a line here, which I'm gonna blend together pretty well. Push down into these stones here. Now, similar to what I did on the other side with the stones, I'm going to take a flat blade tool and just going to kind of come up and give deeper fur lines in here. And knowing that when I start to put the rake down, those are all going to pretty much disappear pretty heavily because I'm going to be using the rake tool so thoroughly. Oh, spray! I'm looking for the spray bottle, and it was totally right in front of me. All right, going to spray this down one more time. Let's find my rake. My rake is right here. I'm going to wipe the rake down and just going to take this back in the direction that the fur would go on the beastie. Much like you would pet an animal, you want the fur to go the same way. So I'm going back along the back like this, spattering my Magic Sculpt all over the place, which I shouldn't be doing. Go in deeper, press down harder. If you want deeper grooves, you can see the rake is getting pretty clunked up. So I'm going to wipe it down one time. Ooh, spray it down again. If it starts to feel like it's snagging, just give it some more moisture. And these burrs that are showing up on here from the Magic Sculpt, I can just sand those down and flake those off after it's nice and dry. I'm just going to pull these all up from down here. And this rake tool quickly gives it that fur texture, especially once I go to paint it. Those grooves will be there, so it'll soak up the dark color. Like when I spray paint it with a dark base, it'll soak that up so that when I go to dry brush on top of it, it'll already have that texture built in, which makes it so awesome and easy for the painting. All right. I'm going to do a couple more deeper grooves. Just going in, just going to press down harder and come in and do it again. Just to give it some slight variation in it. All right. Now that we've got that, ooh, this needs some serious cleaning. Let me just spray that down real quick. Wipe it off a little bit. I'm definitely going to have to scrape off this rake before the next use with an X-Acto. Get all the little prongs. I'm going to do one more thing on here, and it's going to be about time for me to call it a day. If anybody has any questions that they haven't asked, feel free to hit me up via email or however you can find me on social channels. Okay. My toolkit has dropped one of my pieces deep down inside that I need. Come on. Part of it is just getting all of these sculpting tools out. All right, I think this is going to be it. I hope it's the one that I'm looking for. It is. All right, so on all of my sculptures, I stamp them with a little monster C, my Creature Curation C. So I'm going to go ahead and put that down here. I'm going to smooth that out just a little bit. Give it a spot, and then go ahead and jam that in. All right, and that is that. So it's just about 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, my standard time for calling it quits, which is what I need to do today. Thank you for all the new followers today. Thank you for the hosts, the auto hosts. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. I hope you will join me again on my Creature Curations. My next stop will be Saturday night from 9:30 to 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I will be continuing on this beastie. I will be working on the horns. I will be working on the ears some more, probably, and working on the face a bit more next time. And it's got a long way to go, but making some serious progress. So, again, thanks everybody that tuned in. I truly appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.